Hello, welcome back to the Caring Conversation Studio, live from the Care Show in Birmingham and sponsored by Cornerstone Care Solutions. And we are here with our next guest, Francis. Is that,
Yes.
yeah, we say it, sorry. Tell us about who you are and what you do.
So I'm a consultant clinical psychologist by background, and I have developed 6D Dementia, which is a digital training platform for health and care staff, NHS staff and caregivers.
Perfect. So, and what does that sort of actually look like then? It's based, it's a 6-day training course.
Yeah, 6D is the name, and
Yeah.
the 6D stands for the 6 dimensions of dementia. So it helps staff to think about all of the things that are important to understand the person with dementia. So the reason why it's 6D is the 6 dimensions are, the acronym I use is Please See Me. So it's looking at...
Say that again.
Please see me.
Please see me. Okay, yeah.
So P is for your physical health, L is for your life story, E is for the environment that you're in, A is for the activity you engage in, S is for safety, and E is for your emotional well-being. So we're really saying that these are all of the things that are important to help you to understand the whole person with dementia.
Perfect. Okay, so shall we talk about those little categories in and themselves and go through them a little bit? So I guess they're fairly self-explanatory. So the P is what?
It's for physical well-being.
Physical well-being. Okay, so let's start there. What do we mean when we say that?
If you think about it, sometimes as dementia progresses, the person, there are changes in behaviour that sometimes carers don't understand. And what we're saying is that whenever you're thinking about those changes in behaviour, look at things like physical health. So if you imagine, if you have a headache, you're going to be a bit grumpy, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So, or if you've got any kind of physical injury or physical health condition, it can affect how you feel. So what we're really saying is that when you're looking at a person with dementia, look at their physical well-being. Are they experiencing pain? Pain, undiagnosed pain in dementia is a significant problem. So sometimes if someone's a little bit more irritable and we don't recognise that they're in pain, we might label their behaviour as challenging, when in fact if we address their pain, then that would actually help them to feel much more comfortable.
And I guess in a lot of cases they might not be able to articulate that they've got a headache or how severe that is, or they might always complain about having a headache and you don't know what to do. Okay, so having a look at the physical attributes, is there any underlying pain or other problem? Have they got a bad knee, or so understanding that. So the next one is
life story.
Life story, yeah. Okay.
So if you think about it, we all have a different history. Our lives are peppered by challenges and achievements. And if we're caring for someone with dementia, we really need to know who they are, what their life story is, so that we can actually engage with them as an individual. And that's why life story is really important, is to know the person that you're offering care and support to.
So understanding their background and I suppose maybe in some ways that can be quite challenging with someone that's got a particular type of dementia, can't it? But then equally, it tends to be a good... People tend to have good long-term memory, if that's right way of putting it.
Yeah, I think as dementia progresses, then obviously short-term memory is usually the first to go, but then as dementia progresses, even those long-term memories decline. So it may well be that the person can't tell you about their history, so you would need to get that information from their families or people who know them well.
Yeah.
And that's not always possible, though, because sometimes we've got people and they don't have family. So it can be difficult to get that information. But where possible, we want to try and know as much as possible about that person and what their likes and dislikes are for even things like, let's say, a cup of tea. Like, we all have our tea differently. So you might like strong tea with milk and sugar. I like mine differently. So we need to know even, how does the person like to have their tea? Those kind of things that really impact on our quality of life.
So P-L, next, E, yeah.
E is for the environment that you're in.
Yeah.
So thinking about, is the environment, is it noisy? Is it crowded? Are people living with other people that they don't know, for example, in a care home? Is there the opportunity for privacy? All of those things, and can the person get their way around the environment? So all of these things are really important.
Yeah, and next? A
is for activity.
Yeah.
So if you think about your day, there are so many things that you do throughout the day that give you purpose and meaning. And for a person with dementia, we need to look at, how do they spend their day? Do they have access to a range of activities that actually give them purpose and quality to their day? Or do they have no occupation? Because if I've got nothing to do, I'm going to get up and look for something to do. And if I have poor mobility, then that might put me at risk of fall. So we need to look at how that person spends their day. And if that was the way that you spent your day, how would you feel?
And I suppose if you're asking them to do arts and crafts, but that's not something they're at all interested in, and then you're a bit confused about why they don't like it, whereas actually they'd be more than happy having a conversation about football or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. And that's why the life story is so important as well, because it's what that person usually would have enjoyed doing. And we also need to think about someone's strengths and weaknesses, because we want to offer people activities that they can engage with that aren't too difficult but also not too easy. And that can be really trial and error. And also people's interests can change as dementia progresses. So it's about really spending a wee bit of time offering a range of activities and looking to see what the person enjoys.
And then the S?
The S is for safety.
Safety, okay.
And we would argue that maybe safety is the most important. Because if you think about it, if your memory's poor, if you don't recognise the people around you and you don't know where you are you going to feel safe? And you're not going to feel safe. So we need to think about that, think about what the person's abilities are, think about what their understanding is, and see how can we help that person to feel safe. Because if you feel unsafe, you're going to want to leave. You're going to look for your family. All of these things that we can label as difficult behaviour, for example, are a normal reaction to a very abnormal situation.
And you might be with your family but not recognise them as your family. Yeah. So it's
And that's why frequently families might say to us that the person's at home, they've been living there for maybe 30 or 40 years, and they're saying, I want to go home. And sometimes we'll find that the families might then drive the person to their home place where they lived maybe, when they were in their childhood, but that's not what they're looking for. They're looking for that sense of safety and security.
Yeah, I suppose I wonder whether that's the moment at which people who are caring for someone at home with dementia that's when you really start getting pushed to the point where you can't care for themselves. Because I guess naturally, as their husband or wife or their son or daughter or a close friend, you have all of those other elements of those understanding, and then when they reach the point where they suddenly feel unsafe because you're not who they recognise as being safe with, that's really the point. And we, as part of one of the things we do at my coffee shop, is we have a sort of dementia meetup or a memory cafe, we call it, and you get quite a lot of people come in who are like, I just don't know what to do, and I think that seems to me like that's when you hit that point of that person not feeling safe anymore, and that can make it much more complicated.
And that's so important, because you might have someone who's been married for 60 years and their wife or their husband doesn't recognise them anymore, and they become frightened and they want to put them out of the house. So what we need to do in those situations is, what can that husband or wife do to help the person to feel safe? And there's lots of simple things you can do. It might be to even sing or hum a song that's really important for the both of you, and that can actually relax that person, help them to feel safe. Or it might be looking at photographs from an earlier time in your life where they do recognise. Sometimes it might even just be leaving the room and coming back in again. So there's lots of tips that we can give to family carers to help them whenever the person does feel unsafe.
Yeah, and I suppose often that might come about in a moment when you're trying to help them complete a task, get dressed, go to the toilet or something like that. So that then suddenly you're in the middle of something that needs to be completed and you're not. Yeah, that person's not feeling safe. Yeah. So what's the finally?
The E is for emotional well-being.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, is that if you are adjusting to living with a dementia, your memory's not as good as it used to be. You can feel quite anxious, and you can also be low in mood, because if you think about it, we're generally very independent people. We like to make our own decisions. And if you start to lose some of that independence and you require support from other people, that can have a real impact on your mood. So your mood can become low and you become anxious and frightened. So what we want to think about is look for indicators that someone's mood is low. Are they isolating themselves? Are they spending less time with other people? Are they engaging less in conversation? So when we're aware of that, then we can take steps to actually help that person to feel safer and to engage in things that actually improve their mood.
And who do you work with? So who sort of does these courses? You obviously, I suppose, more in adult, in the elderly social care. Who's the sort of ideal person to take this training?
Yeah, so we have a contract with an integrated care board in the UK, and what we're doing is we're rolling out training to NHS staff, local authorities, and the voluntary sector in both community and inpatient settings. Because really everybody needs to know something about dementia. If you even think about like in an acute hospital, even a porter who might be supporting someone to move throughout the hospital needs to know something about dementia. So we work with NHS trusts, we work with domiciliary care providers, care homes, and in the next 4 weeks we'll be able to open that training up to caregivers of people who are living at home. So really for anybody.
Okay, and as someone in this field studying dementia, what's kind of the latest science? Is there anything interesting happening on the sort of top level of stuff that you are particularly interested in? Any interesting innovations you've seen recently?
There are lots of great innovations at the moment, particularly as technology improves. There's a number of people I've been speaking to recently. It's just using things like, for people at home and maybe for families who are, concerned about someone who's maybe living alone. There's lots of really good technology that can help to monitor people's movements at home so that families can look at, if there's been changes in patterns in terms of, what time that person gets up at or whether they're making themselves a cup of tea. So all of those things are really, really helpful.
I was interested in the idea of the sort of enhanced home care model where so at the moment you sort of have home care which involves a few appointments a day to help you with your basic needs, or a care home, and there's sort of nothing in between. And actually with the use of simple but clever technology, you can really sort of understand much more about that person's pattern of behaviour, what means, what needs improving. Is there lighting? Are they putting the heating on? Is everything working properly? Rather than just having to make that leap from seeing someone 3 times a day to then living in a care home.
Absolutely, and I think that's where I think technology in partnership with education is really important, because what we find is that if the caregivers really understand dementia and the person, they feel more able to cope, because what we do is we talk about some of those stressful situations that can happen, and we give families indicators or care staff indicators of how best to respond. So if we can marry the technology with the education piece, then that's really an excellent solution.
Any top tips for people that are kind of interacting with someone with dementia and what to do? I
think it's really, first of all, it's kind of take your time. So recognise that the person's communication may be impaired. So speak in short sentences. Give one piece of information at a time and give the person opportunity to respond. If the person's verbal communication is impaired, then use cues to help them to understand what it is you're saying. And also I think one of the big things is helping that person to feel safe. So it's maybe actually sitting down with them and taking the time just to help them to feel that safety and security.
And I suppose the one of the issues is the whole system's built around how much time everything takes, which is not ideal for someone with dementia, is it? Yeah.
And that's a really interesting point, because one of the things is that if somebody's really stressed and you're there to support with personal care, that personal care is either going to take longer or the person's going to decline your support. So if we spend just an extra 30 seconds helping the person to feel safe, we can actually get that time back, because the person's more likely to accept that support and the support will be much smoother. So, the issue of time is kind of, I think it's a false sense of it doesn't take longer. I think slowing things down actually can actually speed things up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sort of like helping someone wash might not take long in itself, but if they're distressed because they don't recognise you, even if you've been doing it for a year, and I think thinking about it, it also strikes me that it might be, as a professional that's interacting with someone in that situation, to sort of take a moment beforehand to ask them a few questions to see whether you can establish some baseline connection that you might have, like, do we support the same football team? Do you like this? Do you like that? That might help you understand a way to break through and make a connection with them.
And I think as well, music is so powerful. So one of the things that we'll always say to care staff is, either put on some music that the person enjoys, sing a song with them. I know some people are uncomfortable with that, or maybe even just hum a tune, because that can really just change the atmosphere. If you're offering support, that if it's music that someone really enjoys, it can really, if you start off and your stress is at a high level, then care is going to be really difficult. But if you can reduce that anxiety by helping someone to feel more relaxed at the start, then even if someone's stress increases, it won't increase to the level where it becomes problematic.
And I suppose naturally people might think that's calming music, but what's calming to you might not be,
Exactly.
they might like heavy rock. That might be the thing, they sort of had their heydays in the 70s, and they sort of, then that's the sort of thing that's going to connect with them. So I suppose it's, just because it's relaxing classical doesn't mean they're going to necessarily... They might hate that type of music.
They might hate that. So that's why, again, coming back to that life story and knowing the person. And sometimes if you don't have that, you can trial and error. You can try a few things that might work, a few different types of music that work, and see if that's the case.
Perfect. So I've got a final question for you. If you were a biscuit, what type of biscuit would you be?
Oh, gosh. I love chocolate.
Yeah.
So I'd have to be like a chocolate biscuit, I think.
Yeah, chocolate. Yeah. Just chocolate digestive?
Chocolate digestive.
Yeah, chocolate digestive, yeah. Bit of caramel in there as well, or just keep it?
Just keep it standard. Keep it standard, yeah.
The chat before, like chocolate hobnobs.
I don't mind chocolate hobnobs, but the chocolate digestives are probably...
Dunkin' in tea? Do you like to dunk your biscuit in a tea?
Dunkin' in tea. Yeah. The problem is if you dunk in tea, you eat too many of them.
Yeah, I suppose, You can sort of accidentally hammer about 9 biscuits and realise that's about 600 calories.
Very easily,
But, I think a biscuit is a thing that most people will like. So, maybe that's something you can connect with someone with dementia.
Exactly.
What type of biscuit do you like?
Exactly.
Well, it's been brilliant to talk to you. How can people get in touch? Like, is there...
So I'm speaking today in the People, Workforce and Wellbeing at 3:50, but also you can connect with me on LinkedIn, or if you look for 60 Dementia online, then you can see our website, and you can contact me through that.
Perfect. Right. Well, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, it's good to talk to you.
Lovely. Well, we'll be back shortly.